And what we saw in Brooklyn, New York was a one-sided beatdown with Boots Ennis becoming the new unified champion at the 154.
Zayas went in there, he showed his heart, but Boots went in there and he showed his skill level. Honestly, with this win, I think he easily breaks into the top 10 pound-for-pound fighters list.
Boots, he looked incredible, except for one round. What about that chin? Zayas is a guy who isn't a power puncher, was able to really stumble and hurt Ennis in that fashion. What is this to say if, Vergil Ortiz is able to land a two-punch combination on Ennis? What about Fundora?
What I think is an issue, I think this is much, much more important than debating whether or not Boots is chinny. I think he gets hit too much.
Vergil Ortiz was very vocal on Twitter, stating that he would sleep Boots Ennis, that he'd stop him, which is honestly one of the biggest fights in boxing today. Welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing and everything in between. Today's episode, we'll be going over Boots Ennis' 7th round KO win over Xander Zayas, as well as Usyk and Canelo Mbilli news. But before we get into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. And now, diving into the episode, we had a unification at the 154 over in Brooklyn, New York this past weekend, where we saw two undefeated fighters in Xander Zayas as he took on Boots Ennis in a unification title fight. This was highly anticipated fight for the division. As we know, Xander was coming in as the unified champion, the WBO and WBA, and Boots was there to make his second fight at the 154 division. And what we saw in Brooklyn, New York was a one-sided beatdown with Boots Ennis becoming the new official unified champion at the 154 and is looking for bigger fights later down the line. First off, thoughts about the fight?
Yeah, man, this is exactly what boxing is all about. I mean, it was an amazing fight, non-stop action, 3 knockdowns. Boots also got hurt. Like, this fight basically had everything you need. It was super fun to watch. And, we knew going into this fight, Boots, he had the upper edge. He has higher ring IQ. He's a switch hitter. And he just has overall the more experience over a guy like Xander Zayas, who's 23. But you got to give respect to Zayas. He did not get scared. He went full force out there and put it all on the line. He tried to be great, so you got to salute him there. But it was Boots Ennis' night for sure.
Yeah. Before I even want to talk about into the fight, a big shout out to Zayas who trying to step up to the plate and try to become great. 25 years ago when his fellow countryman Tito Trinidad stepped up to the went up in weight and challenged Bernardo Hopkins, a guy who was from Philly. The guy from Philly got the better of that exchange. Zayas, was trying to, do right for his country. But also I think, for his country. But, we should also give props to Zayas for trying to, at the young age of 23, try to, go up against a killer monster like Ennis, and it's very difficult, especially in today's age. We see a lot of these forever prospects, these guys, these forever contenders that never really want to, take that leap, take that challenge, and dare to become great. Zayas, he's not like the rest of them.
Yeah, you really cannot underestimate that. Massive respect. He's only 23 years old, and he had 2 of the 4 belts at 154. If he wanted to, he could have fought a little title defense, somebody that isn't that mainstream, that, he's going to be the big favorite coming in. But that's not what he wanted to do, right? He wanted to test himself. He wanted to try to be great. He wanted to shut up all the haters. And he went up against like one of the boogeymen of boxing in Dethrones Ennis. You know, not many people want to fight Boots. So just for Zayas, just to, you know, this fight was made like super fast. You know, the negotiations went smoothly. It just shows you, you know, that this kid really does have a lot of heart. I say kid, and he's older than me, but so, you know, it's just great to see from Zayas. I love, this is exactly what boxing needs. You know, we need people like Xander Zayas who have the mentality of, I want to show the world how great I am, so I'm going to make the biggest and best fights happen.
Yeah, and, you know, apart from the whole card, you know, the main event was the one who really, you know, sold, you know, this whole event. I mean, great things happen when two great fighters go into the ring. You know, they both want to show greatness, and, you know, we saw that. You know, I don't want to, you know, poke around and stuff like that, but some of these other guys that were on the undercard who have quite a bit of wins, you know, they got the stoppages, they look impressive, but it's the same story that we continue to see over and over and over again. You know, these guys, they, you know, beat a guy who's maybe somewhat ranked, but like on paper, you know, it's not the best. And so for Zayas to actually decide to call out a guy who was a boogeyman at a previous lower weight class, and then seems to have that same threat at a new weight class, you know, props to him for trying to do that. Absolutely.
And, you know, Zayas went in there, he showed his heart, but Boots went in there and he showed his skill level. I mean, is this a masterclass for Boots? You know, honestly, with this win, I think he easily breaks into the top 10 pound-for-pound fighters list. So, you know, he went in there, he was really aggressive, and he started putting a belt to ass on Xander Zayas, but Zayas still did get his licks in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so, you know, you said this was a masterclass, but can you really say this was a masterclass when he lost a round? You know, when I think about masterclass, I'm thinking about Sugar Shakur, you know, just shutting out Teofimo Lopez. Like, I can't really remember seeing a round that Shakur lost. You know, Boots, he looked incredible except for one round. So, I mean, you know, it looked like he was about to be on the verge on the canvas. What does that say?
I mean, yeah, that round 3, famous round 3 from the fight, people are calling it the round of the year already. You know, it was nonstop action. That was one of our first times ever seeing Boots like that. You know, Xander Zayas caught him, I believe, with just a 3-2, you know, right hand, right to the jaw, right to the little beard that Dethrones Ennis had to trim up before the fight. And he rocked him. You know, he landed some great shots. You know, he made Boots' neck go all the way back. It was a great round, you know, absolutely great round, but it just shows the composure that Boots has. I mean, you know, that round didn't go his way. The next round, boom, he's back in control. So, like, it really shows championship composure. It's in the toughest moments, Boots is going to shine.
Yeah, obviously, you know, when push comes to shove, you know, Boots is a guy who, you know, wants to take it up a notch, and, you know, he did exactly that. I mean, you know, he seems to have, you know, still have that power. The ring IQ obviously is there. I mean, Zayas was criticizing him, saying that he's a flat-footed fighter. I didn't really see much of that. I saw him being able to switch it up, you know, stand in the pocket, as well as, you know, moving around, you know, trying to look for his shots and stuff like that.
No, and Zayas seemed like the flat-footed fighter. You know, I think he kind of went in with the wrong game plan. He got a little too over eager and started, you know, he wanted to like trade with Boots Ennis. So I really don't think that was the correct game plan.
Yes. Well, I mean, look, you know, on paper, it's going to show that Ennis got the stoppage over the ex-undisputed champion Zayas. You know, Ennis seemed to be he looked really almost like perfect. You know what I'm saying? He was able to make the adjustments, you know, come back from that shaky third round. But one thing that I want to pose or ask you guys is, what about that chin? You know, I thought it was kind of interesting how the fact that, you know, Zayas is a guy who isn't a power puncher was able to really stumble and hurt Ennis in that fashion. You know, what is this to say if, you know, Vergil Ortiz is able to land a 3-2 or a 2-punch combination on Ennis. What about Fundora, a guy who is gonna beat you up from halfway across the ring?
Yeah, I saw some people talking about Boots' chin, saying it might not be as strong at 154. I mean, this is boxing at the end of the day. Zayas is a unified champion. I do think he was, the weakest champion, but he's still a champion, and he has his skills, and he's also a big guy. I mean, like you could tell even in the ring, Xander Zayas is bigger naturally than Dethrones Ennis. So I think with Boots, at 154. He's going to be faced with like a lot of people that are going to be a little bit bigger than him. But I think, honestly, he showed a good chin. He was able to take some like picture perfect shots from Zayas that I believe would have floored a lot of other people. And yeah, he got rocked, but he was still there. He was still in the firefight, in the pocket, trying to swing with Xander Zayas. So, I mean, I don't think anything. I think the critics are being a little too harsh, honestly. I don't. This didn't make me think that Boots is chinny, or if he fights a power puncher like Vergil Ortiz, that he's gonna get knocked out. I didn't walk away with that.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, Xander, bigger dude, higher weight class. This was also Boots's second fight at the 154. Zayas has been at the 154 for some time now. I think for a majority of his career has been in that division, so he's more acclimated to that weight class. So I mean, it was very shocking to see him actually get hurt, because like we mentioned, that was probably the first time we've seen Boots stumble and show actual signs of being hurt. But he did a good job, stayed in the pocket, picked out his shots. He was trying to exchange with Xander, and even during that tough moment for Boots, he was able to connect on Xander to a point where he actually rocked him right back. So like close to the end of the round. So Boots, the chin was, that was the biggest talking point, mainly because that was really the only one, probably one of the most exciting parts of the fight, and two, that was easily the best moment for Xander throughout the fight. So it is a big talking moment. And I did see a lot of people say, yo, if it was Vergil Ortiz who caught Boots with that punch, I mean, Boots might have been floored. And I think that's the big question that a lot of people are asking regarding the power and whatnot. And I think that's all speculation at that point. Overall, I think Boots did a fantastic job. I mean, he floored him 3 times. The second knockdown was a beautiful shot. Was it like a 2 and then an uppercut to catch Xander off guard, and floored him, and he had him hurt. And I'm surprised that he was able to survive that 5th round when he got dropped the second time, because that was heavy. But I mean, honestly, I don't think the chin is a really big factor here. I don't think it should really be taken too much of a speculation whether or not he had the chin or not.
Well, to me, I'm gonna maybe it's a good way to just be like, oh, he just got caught with the lucky shot or whatever. But I think it's very interesting the fact that I want to say maybe this could be Boots' first time getting hit with the clean shot. More importantly, a shot that he was not expecting, and we visibly saw him on shaky legs. I think that's where I'm kind of like coming at, and I'm kind of fascinated as to just the way his body and especially his legs reacted to those punches. I mean, because if he gets hit with these power punches at 154, I don't think Boots is gonna get up. So I thought it was interesting because Zayas doesn't really have that power like that. So for him to be able to do Boots like that, put him on shaky legs, I could see Vergil Ortiz, stopping him.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely showed us that Boots is human at the end of the day. He's undefeated, and sometimes he looks like genuinely like no one is on his level. But yes, he is human, and Zayas caught him with the beautiful right hand. Again, I mean, I really don't think the chin is an issue here. What I think is an issue, I think this is much, much more important than debating whether or not Boots is chinny. I think he gets hit too much. That's what I think the problem is. I think sometimes he's a little too eager. You could tell, like, he wanted the knockout. He was being extremely aggressive. He was staying in the pocket for a lot longer than he should have. He wanted the exchanges. And listen, that's good, right? Because he's a great fighter. And, he put belt to ass to Xander Zayas, right? But in like bigger fights, like a Vergil Ortiz fight, he can't be getting super eager and wanting to exchange with these guys. He has to go back, to get on that stick, move around, what I'm saying, change your stances, lateral movements. So I think sometimes, he's so good and he knows he's so much better than his opponent. Sometimes he kind of like asks for the fight, and I don't want that to become a habit. Then, like, if you're gonna fight one of the against Vergil Ortiz, that's one of the biggest fights in boxing today. You can't be doing stuff like that. You got to really be disciplined. So I just wish that Boots sometimes would clean up a little bit. Fundamentally, I think for the fans, it's obviously amazing because we got a fantastic fight, right? So as a boxing fan, I would say keep on doing that. But if I was his trainer, I'd be like, yo, like, calm down. Like, you're already winning. You do not have to like beat him up so bad. You don't have to throw so many power punches. You don't have to stay in the pocket for so long. So I just really hope that doesn't become a habit for him.
Well, honestly, I think you can pair that up with being overconfident. I think, especially, just the ability that he has, the natural born reflexes that he possesses. He's able to almost throw 3-4 punch combinations and then see his opponent respond and then be able to evade that punch, very elusively. And it's very exciting to see. I as someone who is a fan of Boots, it's hard not to rally, behind that. But then comes the overconfidence. And I think, in this situation, I think going back to the third round, I think Boots did get overconfident, dropped him early in the first round. Second round, he won that easily. And I think he just got overconfident, and, he was hit with that punch. And, he bounced back from that. And, it is what it is. So, I think the overconfidence is what could really be a double-edged sword for Boots Ennis.
For sure, because I think sometimes it does give him like this aura about him when he's in the ring, when he's like styling on his opponents, and it makes for fantastic edits, let me tell you as well. I mean, there's some great ones out there. And even in this fight against Zayas, I mean, there was multiple times where, he kind of like just moved and like did it, like a showmanship, right? So that is part of his boxing style, but when you're going up against like Vergil Ortiz or Sebastian Fundora, like, what I'm saying, just make sure you're on your P's and Q's, right? Like, don't get a little too sloppy, don't get eager, be disciplined, and if he stays that way, I mean, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat him at the 154.
Speaking of people who can beat him, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of new opportunities, new fights for Boots now that he's a unified champion. There was talks about, Eddie Hearn mentioned maybe pairing him up against Josh Kelly, the IBF champion. That could be made within Matchroom. You also got the WBC champion Sebastian Fundora, who's also available in the market. And then lastly, we of course have the Vergil Ortiz showdown, which is honestly one of the biggest fights in boxing today, and it's a fight that definitely does need to happen. Vergil Ortiz was very vocal on Twitter, stating that he would sleep Jerome Boots Ennis, that he'd stop him, this and that. And then he also went at Xander Zayas, which was fucking crazy. But
bro, he also went towards the Latin Snake, Sergio Mora as well.
Who?
Sergio Mora.
Really? What did you say about him?
He said something about, I've never been given a belt before.
Yeah, it was crazy stuff. Vergil was definitely very vocal this past weekend during the Boots and Xander fight. But, I mean, that's the fight that a lot of people want to see, Boots against Vergil. But, like I mentioned, there's 3 options for him. There's Undisputed. There's the showdown with Vergil. I mean, if you were Boots Ennis, what would be the route that you'd take?
For Ennis, I mean, it's pretty evident that, I think he mentioned something about being, unified, or maybe not unified, but undisputed. I think at 154, Ennis can campaign at that weight class for maybe 2-3 years, maybe, possibly. I think in that time he can, be given the opportunity to fight for all these, for the rest of the 2 belts. I think it's pretty simple. I think we can see him go up against Josh Kelly maybe later this year. That would be an in-house fight. I mean, Eddie Hearn would be gladly, no problems, would be able to put that fight into fruition.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, as a boxing fan, I want Vergil Ortiz versus Jaron Boots Ennis. We've been teased this fight for many years now, and, you know, you start to get a little frustrated, right? Because you never want this. You don't want this to be a fight of like a Mayweather Pacquiao, you know, where they fight so many years in the future when they should have fought them. When they should have fought in their primes. Like, you don't want that to happen, right? And hopefully that doesn't happen. But so I want that fight next. But if I was on Boots' team, I would honestly say go the Josh Kelly route. You know, I would say chase the belts, you know, because that's really what gives you the accolades. That's what gives you legacy, you know, undisputed at 154. But I don't know. I mean, he obviously has half of the belts now at 154. He's kind of the main man already. It's his second fight. He's already basically like took over the division, you know, whereas Vergil Ortiz, it's so unfortunate that for some reason he signed with De La Hoya, and now they're doing this like litigation. There's contract breaches, all this type of stuff. And, you know, after so many fights at 154, Vergil Ortiz still isn't a world champion. And Boots was able to do it in 2 fights, you know. So it is what it is, you know. But I really do want that fight next. I think easily late this year or early next year, I would love to see that fight.
Yeah, it all really depends on what happens between Vergil Ortiz and Golden Boy. Supposedly, I saw rumors that Golden Boy and Team Ortiz had progression in their talks recently, and that more in regards of offering Vergil a fight at least before the end of the year. So those are the rumors. I don't think anything's confirmed. But with Vergil being very vocal, I think he is kind of brewing up for a potential return because he needs it. I mean, he's only gone really 2 rounds with Hammer Time Lubin before he eradicated him. And then let's not forget that after that fight, I mean, Boots went up to the ring and they had the whole face off. They're saying, "You're next. This fight's coming up next." And then, you know, look where we're at now. That fight hasn't, you know, it doesn't seem likely. So we'll see what happens. It all really just, like I said, depends on Vergil and his team and his anticipated return. But yeah, for sure, Josh Kelly, I mean, I think I know he's the weakest champion currently at the 154. Sebastian Fundora, though, on the other hand, that's a very interesting fight for Boots. I remember I saw a video of Dan Kabayel on social media stating that he doesn't really see that fight likely to happen, like, at all. Since Fundora was PBC, and now he didn't really go too deep into it. But that fight would actually be a very interesting fight because I think any fighter up against Fundora is always going to be interesting just because of the height disparity, and you kind of want to see how the opponent is going to try to come up with a game plan to compensate for such a one-sided height reach advantage from Fundora.
It almost seems as though anybody that's, you know, preparing to fight for Sebastian Fundora, you have to get like a heavyweight in order to get used to that height disadvantage.
Isn't it funny that the tallest world champion in boxing isn't a heavyweight, but is actually a 154 pounder?
No.
How does that make any sense?
Genetics.
Which is crazy, yes. So, I mean, I think the road for undisputed is there. There is a clear road for Boots and for Eddie Hearn for them to try to come up with a game plan to navigate if the Vergil Ortiz fight doesn't happen within these next 1 or 2 fights. But I think he has good options, more so with Fundora for undisputed, which I think would be a banging matchup.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this. So right now, 154, we have 3 world champions. How do you guys rank them? Best to worst?
I mean, it's honestly a toss-up between Fundora and Boots, right? Like, it really is. I mean, if you want to, like, get, like, on paper, I mean, I would say technically Boots should be higher up because he has 2 belts. But I don't think that's really, that math doesn't really work, right? You have to look at them, you have to see their performances, see what they've been doing. And honestly, what I will say, I still think Fundora she should be given the props that he deserves. I do think I would rank him number one because, you know, he's done title defenses. He's been a world champion for a while, you know, so like he's been campaigning at this weight for a long time, and we've seen him get better and better every single fight. Whereas with Boots, you know, this was like a coup, right? It was like a takeover of the 154. He just sniped the champion in his second fight, which is super impressive. But I think, you know, you got to give the roses, you know, the flowers to Fundora, and I'd place him too. And then of course Josh Kelly. I mean, it kind of seems like we're throwing him to the side, but it's like he still did something amazing, right? He was an underdog against Murtazaliev, who was the boogeyman of 154. No one wanted to fight him, and he was able to come out with the victory in that fight. So huge props to him. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just like discrediting him or he didn't do anything good. No, that was extremely impressive by him. So all the champions, the whole division is stacked, right? I mean, like, it's damn near impossible to say who's the best guy because we just have to wait and see them in the ring and fight each other.
Yeah, I agree. Fundora would be my number one just based on the defenses, and also just I think Eddie going up against Fundora is going to be difficult for anyone. Yes, he got knocked out once, okay? But then look what he's done afterward. He's progressed. He's enhanced. He's honed his skill sets, and he's now becoming a more complete fighter, which is a very scary sight for any opponent of Sebastian Fundora in these coming years. So I would have Fundora my number one, number two Boots. You know, impressive introduction into the division, and then last Josh Kelly. Beating Murtazaliev is not an easy task, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they try to navigate Josh Kelly as well. Let's see what route him and his team take, because there was beforehand there was talks between Josh Kelly and Xander Zayas to have a unification right then and there, but it didn't come into fruition. They went back and forth on Twitter for a bit, but nothing really came from it, and Josh Kelly hasn't really announced any new major fight announcements recently, so we'll have to see regarding Josh Kelly and the IBF. But for sure, Sebastian 1, Boots 2, and Josh Kelly number 3.
That's funny. So I asked that question because I thought one of you guys were gonna give like a different answer. But yeah, I mean, I'm also in agreement. You know, Sebastian Fundora is a guy that is such a nightmare to go up against. Like, how do you train for someone like that? And now it's even scarier now because it seems as though, you know, post that knockout defeat against Mendoza, now it seems as though he's honed in on you know, his reach abilities. He's understood that he's pretty tall. He does have to go, you know,
in the
up
pocket,
close, in the pocket, you know, phone book type of a fight. So now you really have to like go and, you know, try to find ways around that reach. You know, I mean, Boots is a guy that has a lot of abilities, but even he will have such a difficult time, you know, going up against Fundora. But we give this we give this rankings, but you know, the math, you know, doesn't always math. You know, boxing math isn't the same as just regular math. You know, things happen, and just because some guy has freak genetics doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna win all the time, or someone that has natural abilities is gonna win all the time.
Yeah, and before we end, I'm gonna a little teaser right now, because you know we all said Fundora right number one. But after this win for Boots, you know, beating Zayas, I think it's safe to say he broke into the top 10 pound for pound list. There's no other champion at 154 that is on the pound for pound list. So, I mean, if we're going to give Boots the credit and say he's one of the top 10 best fighters on the planet, I mean, should he be placed higher then? Because we think he is a better fighter than Sebastian Fundora. Food for thought.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's the same thing. We can go back and forth. I mean, just because a guy can beat up a guy doesn't necessarily mean that he shouldn't be on the top 10 pound for pound ranking. So that's interesting. Interesting comment.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't have Boots on my pound for pound, but that's just me. I haven't really even thought about my pound for pound. So I mean, I still believe Fundora for me is number one in the division, regardless. But yes, that was the fight over in Brooklyn, New York, where we saw a new unified champion come into fruition with Boots Ennis stopping Xander Zayas in the 7th round after dropping them 3 times beforehand to become WBO and WBA champion, and now is looking for a road towards undisputed. So we'll see what happens regarding Boots, Eddie Hearn, and the rest of Team Ennis at the 154-pound division, the best division in boxing today. And now moving over to the big boys, the heavyweight. No big fight besides the breaking news. We no longer have Usyk farming the division. Actually, he might. I don't know. Point is, he vacated his WBC, WBA, and IBF belts on Friday on a video, style announcement stating that he's vacating, but he's still going to have, quote unquote, one final dance. The thing is, this came with a lot of controversy, more so from Mauricio Suleiman, who quote retweeted it and stated how disappointing it was for him to find out that Usyk vacated over a video and that he wishes him the best and whatever, right? And that came with a lot of people commenting under Suleiman, calling him all these types of names and blah, blah, blah. Point is, Usyk is no longer champion in the heavyweight division. The belts have dispersed like the Dragon Balls. And now we'll see what happens next. Thoughts about this?
Listen. I want to start this off by saying that I am a fan of Usyk, okay?
Would you say he's the GOAT?
I don't know about the GOAT, but this generation's GOAT, yes. Yes, for sure. What he's done at cruiserweight, dominated. And then he went up to heavyweight, dominated. I mean, it's just, this is history in the making, right? So you gotta tip your hat, you know what I'm saying? You gotta say, give him his flowers. Usyk is the man. At the same time, I don't think this was a very good move from him because I think he had to fight Kabayel. I mean, people say he's farming the division. He's farming the division. There's one fighter that he hasn't farmed. And he's actually next in line. He's knocking on Usyk's door, and that's Agit Kabayel. And Usyk paid no attention to him. Instead of defending his WBC championship against Kabayel, he decides to vacate. So I think this is a clear duck, I'm going to be honest. And I'm super disappointed in Usyk. I'm a very big fan of him. After that fight against Rico, I dropped him on my pound for pound list just because how competitive it is. And then after this, it's like what are you showing? Like, who are you gonna fight then? You're gonna farm a Anthony Joshua trilogy, or like what are you gonna do? Right? You're gonna fight Wilder, or I think that the only clear opponent for him was Agit Kabayel, and him vacating his belts just shows me that he's not gonna fight Kabayel. So, Kabayel, congratulations. He's the new WBC champion. I wish it was under better circumstances, but you deserve it.
Should we give a round of applause for Kabayel being an email champion?
Listen, he deserves it, bro. He deserves it. It's not his fault Usyk didn't want to fight him.
When you're the fucking champ, you can do whatever the fuck you want, my guy. This does not deteriorate from what he made, from all his previous bouts, from all the previous champions that he's beaten on a large margin, even some of them stopping them as well. I mean, that doesn't deteriorate the fact that he ducked Kabayel. So what? He ducked Kabayel. He's still going to go down in the history books. Who's going to remember this in 50 years? Who's going to remember this? No one's going to remember this. What they're going to remember is the fact that Usyk went from a cruiserweight undisputed champion, went up to heavyweight, and became undisputed there while beating these fucking giants, David and Goliath style. No one's going to give a fuck about this chubby dude from Germany.
In the history books, there's always going to be a little asterisk, but he didn't fight Agit Kabayel.
No, yeah, it was disappointing to see because even after the Rico fight, they had Kabayel go into the ring and to try to build up for that fight for later down the line. But now with the video announcement and then him stating, one last dance, which kind of, it's kind of implying the fact that he's going to have one more fight, even though he did say he was going to have 3. Yeah. So maybe he decided, maybe it's time to kind of, call it the end of the day after the Rico fight. But it is sad to see him probably, Kabayel's probably not going to be the last opponent. But it's sad to see that Kabayel never got the opportunity to beat Usyk, and I think it's always going to be a what if, what if Kabayel would have beaten Usyk? And I mean, Kabayel's coming off in strong form. He's a good fighter overall, and he's been the interim champion for some time now, and he should have gotten the opportunity to fight Usyk. But instead, WBC said, "Fuck it, let's go Rico route because there's more money for us and for the commission."
Ain't that crazy? Fucking Suleiman was bitching.
Yeah, I swear to God. Like, listen, I don't want to agree with him, but because he's like just such a leech on boxing, right? But like, he did bring up a fair point. You know what I'm saying? We do have to bring. He brought up a fair point, but someone else should say it, not you. Okay?
No.
Well, I saw some people stating how once Kabayel got elevated to full WBC champion, people online were saying, fighters getting elevated is the dumbest thing. Even if they are the interim, they should have at least a fight for the vacant title belt against the number 1. And in this case, Kabayel is the interim champion, but the number 1 ranked in the WBC is Tyson Fury. So people were saying, why not just have Kabayel and Tyson Fury fight for the vacant WBC belt, which is something I don't mind at all. I think it's a great fight too. Tyson Fury coming back, gave a pretty boring, kind of a little mediocre fight. But, I mean, he was coming back from retiring from, like, the 5th time. So I give him some slack on the performance. But definitely it is a fight for later down the line if Fury is deciding to, stay in the boxing scene for some time. To see this fight with him and Kabayel, I mean, this would be his opportunity to become world champion again. And why not against the guy who was ducked by Oleksandr Usyk? If you beat Kabayel, then you could say, I beat the man who Usyk ducked. Where's my trilogy, Usyk? He could kind of play to that narrative. So I think it's interesting to see Tyson Fury, Kabayel maybe down the line. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, obviously, we talk about it. We don't like email champions, but, boxing has progressed from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, the teens, and then now in today's day and age in 2026, being elevated to an email champion is not very unique, I wish we had a little tally mark to actually show the audience, how reoccurring this thing is on a yearly basis. But, obviously that fight would be very interesting. Right, it'd be interesting to see how Kabayel is able to deal with a big guy like Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, he's on the older side. I mean, it could possibly be a really big fight for Tyson Fury, and but it would most likely be his last fight. I don't really see him beating Kabayel. Kabayel is just right now in his prime. I mean, there's a reason why Usyk decided to. Basically retire. Yeah. He has one foot out the ring, honestly. And, Kabayel is the reason why for that. And so, Kabayel is just, I'm not going to say he's on top of the mountain, but, I mean, he kind of is, honestly.
Man, fuck that fight. I don't care. I don't want to see Kabayel versus Tyson Fury. I want to see Usyk versus Kabayel. Okay, like that's what I want to see, and for Usyk to just duck him like that is honestly crazy, because I think this is what I think. Right after his last fight against Rico, he realized that he doesn't have as much gas in the tank as he thought he did. Yeah. Like he was losing that fight, and the referee for sure was helping him out. Right, so. What I think is, after that fight, he thought to himself, right? Okay, if I want to be undisputed, I have to defend my title against Agit Kabayel, who's in his prime, who's on a crazy win streak, who is the body snatcher. He didn't want any of the smoke, because I'll say it right now, Agit Kabayel would have beaten Oleksandr Usyk if they would have fought next. And, Usyk just did not want the smoke, and it's okay. It is what it is. I mean, he did the right thing and he vacated, but it's going to be a massive what if for boxing. I really wanted to see these two guys in the ring, and I fear that unfortunately we will never see that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who's next for Oleksandr Usyk. Like you mentioned in the video, he has one final dance. He's not yet leaving the sport. But him vacating the 3 out of the 4 belts, or vacating all the belts he had, was definitely very shocking, and took a lot of people by surprise that he actually did that and blatantly avoided Agit Kabayel. And before people come at us saying, "Oh, you guys are just hating," like, no, we've been advocates for Agit Kabayel to fight Usyk for like the longest time now, man. It's been like over a year that we've been calling for that fight to be made, but Mauricio Suleiman, the WBC, don't follow the rules, don't enforce it, and they end up doing some bogus things. And at the end of the day, look what happens. That fight's never gonna happen. And now Agit Kabayel lost the opportunity to pull off a big upset and to pull off the biggest win in his career if he would have beaten Oleksandr Usyk. So it's gonna be interesting to see who Oleksandr Usyk fights next. Does he give Rico the rematch? I mean, I think that's very unlikely. Does he go for the Tyson Fury trilogy? I mean, who's realistically even next in line for Oleksandr Usyk?
Well, that's actually the question that I wanted to pose to you guys, and I'm thinking, why don't we do a little bet? Let's do an in-house bet. If Usyk is gonna be a man of his word and be like, "Oh, I have one more fight, and that's it." Who do you? If you guys were to bet money, let's do like a $5 buy-in. Who do you think would be his last opponent?
It's tough. I ain't gonna lie. This is extremely tough because my initial gut reaction is to say Tyson Fury. Get that trilogy. That's a mega money fight. That's always gonna sell. But at the same time, Tyson Fury and AJ supposedly already have some agreement that after AJ's fight, I believe next month, they're gonna fight like later at the end of the year. So they kind of seem like out, So then it becomes kind of difficult. It's like, who else is he gonna fight? There was talks about it before, and I think it will happen. Give me Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder. Come on, that's gonna be the next one, and I would love to see that fight too.
Okay. Yeah, I saw people actually throw out Wilder's name out there, saying that that's probably going to be the going away fight. I mean, it was rumored before the Rico fight, the fact that Deontay Wilder would get the opportunity to become champion again against Usyk, but now that Usyk vacated, he's looking for one final fight. I mean, why not have it with the Bronze Bomber? If not, have the rematch with Chisora. I mean, I don't even know at this point. But I think the Deontay Wilder would be a fun fight. If it's just the going away, saying goodbye to the sport. I mean, Usyk has done a lot for the sport, regardless of his decision to vacate the belt and not fight Kabayel. So I think, a Deontay Wilder fight would be hilarious. I think it would be entertaining just because Deontay Wilder would really, going to be the same Deontay Wilder that fought against Chisora, pulling up to fight against Usyk. And, I'd expect an Usyk stoppage, but it would be a fun fight as long as it lasted.
Yeah, but who are you choosing if you were to bet money on Usyk's last opponent?
Dude, I don't even know, man. I think...
No, you got to say something.
Well, I'm not betting. I'm not putting money down, but if I had to say, I mean, it's hard, man. I mean, sheesh. There's not really much because... I think it would have been crazy if he would have picked someone like Moses Itoma to have his, the passing of the torch. But Itoma does have a fight coming up against Hrgovic later down the line for championship belt right there. So it's going to be championship belt or vacant. I think it's vacant or interim or something. I'm pretty sure it's interim. Point is, I don't know, man. I think Deontay Wilder would make a lot of sense. I mean, it's like low risk. I mean, still low reward, but I mean, at least you have Deontay Wilder in your resume. You can make off good money from that fight because then with every Deontay Wilder fight, so if he lands the right hand, so people would tune in regardless, even though Deontay Wilder is not the same Deontay Wilder from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'll just say Deontay Wilder as well. I'm not sure.
Hold on, can I change my answer?
What?
Give me Zhilei Zhang, the Big Bang. I was such a big fan of him, I ain't gonna lie. He knocked out Wilder, and then Kabayel, the body snatcher, he took the dreams of becoming a world champion away, and that was really hard for me. After that fight, I was like, okay, Kabayel is legit, I ain't gonna lie, because Zhilei Zhang is him. But give me Zhilei Zhang. I want that fight next, for sure.
How about Richard Torres?
No. Let's be serious. Let's be serious. Because look, I was thinking about it just right now. Usyk doesn't seem to be a guy that seems as though he's a family man. Seems to be a guy who maybe not invested his money, but he saved money. Seems as though this guy has he's definitely living off the fruits of his labor. From just the accomplishments that he's done in boxing. So, I think a money fight isn't something that would entice him. I think with this Rico fight that he had, I think he realized that he doesn't have that tenacity within himself anymore that maybe he once had, when he was younger. So I think at this point in time he would want to get his lick back against Rico, because how else would a guy like that who's super competitive, who's been in the sport for a very long time, how else would he be motivated to go into the ring one last time than get that lick back, especially just from all the criticism that he's received online.
No, yeah, I saw Rico react to Usyk's remarks of him vacating. Yeah. He seemed happy, yeah, he was happy. He was like, let's get this rematch on. I was like, oh, so I'm sure in his mind, he thinks it's a good sign, if Usyk is vacating all the belts so he can get a rematch. I could see it happening, honestly. Just like you said, a lot of criticism from Usyk after that fight. So, who knows, bro? Usyk he's kind of crazy, like he's a character for sure. And I don't think we're never going to get the prediction fully right. We can just hope that it's going to be a good send-off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll definitely see who's next for Oleksandr Usyk's potential final fight of his career. One opponent for sure who isn't going to be his next opponent is Agit Kabayel. But shocking news in the heavyweight division as Oleksandr Usyk vacated his WBC, WBA, and WBO championship belts. So now on to the final segment of our episode. Today we go over to the former face of boxing, Canelo Álvarez, and his return against Christian Mbilli, scheduled for a September showdown, has been officially pushed back to late October. A lot of people are like, what's going on? What's the meaning behind this? There's, reports stating that it was to integrate the fight into the new rehab season. They're, I guess, expanding their scheduling for next year and whatnot. And the other report that came out was in order for them to put in the anticipated, I guess, welterweight WBC showdown between Ryan the Flash Garcia as he takes on Conor Benn for September 12th, I believe. Thoughts about that?
I mean, I'm very surprised. We're talking about Canelo Álvarez, who was the former face of boxing. And he always fights on Mexican Independence Weekend, It's like Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day. Boom. It's a Canelo fight for sure, right? All the Mexicans, they get a watch party, they start drinking some Coronas, and some Modelos. And then, but we tune into some Canelo whooping ass. And it's going to feel a little bit weird now, We're not going to see Canelo on the Independence Weekend, which is very unfortunate, I'm excited about this fight. I love this fight. Mbilli is a very, very strong fighter, and he's serious. This isn't like a nobody. Like, we've followed Mbilli for a very long time now. We've seen him come up, and he brings the fight. So it's gonna be very exciting. I was very excited to watch it, and now I'm gonna have to wait another month. So I'm kind of disappointed. And even if it was for for King Ryan, man, fuck Ryan Garcia. I want to see Canelo. I don't want to see Ryan Garcia. So I don't know. I mean, this was disappointing news for me, and I would have loved to see Canelo on September 12th.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully, somebody's able to ask Canelo about why the date was moved to a later date. Because I would like to see his reaction. The guy who, even though, would you guys consider him still the face of boxing? One can, make the argument, yes, no. The point being is the fact that he still has aura. He still has a huge fan base and, a big part of Mexico, that supports him every time he steps into the ring. So this guy has the pulling power. This guy has leverage. So for him to, I guess, to some degree, come to some type of agreement that, yes, okay, fine, we'll just push back the date to a later date in October, which is not, there's no really much significance to Mexico and Mexican heritage and whatnot. So I was shocked. So I would like to see how he felt. But those two, that fight between him and Mbilli, really good fight. I think it could be the passing of the torch, maybe. Canelo's on the older side, and Mbilli's a guy who just never seems to tire out after throwing 1,000 punches every fight. So it's kind of interesting to see that matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's rumors speculating that the reason why the fight's getting pushed back is because Canelo's busy with the World Cup. He's watching all the Mexico games. They always pan to him. He's got a little drink.
True?
He's got a little
That's true, bro.
No, I just came up with it. No, it's all bullshit. I came up with that. Okay. But he's at the World Cup games. Yeah. He's always there during the Mexico games at the Azteca, even in Jalisco when they played in Guadalajara. So, I mean, he's a little busy right now. You got to make sure that Mexico gets the win during this World Cup and potentially the world, win the actual trophy, which is pretty unlikely. But still, yeah. Regardless, it was a bit shocking to see the fight get pushed back to late October. More so shocking to see that it was potentially to make room for Ryan Garcia instead, which I was like, what? Okay, that's a crazy move to make. But if Canelo gave the okay for it, then there must be a reason.
I mean, well, that's the thing. Like, if that's true, I mean, I don't think they would have asked Canelo. They would have just, because Canelo, I'm sure his preference is to fight on Mexican Independence Weekend, like every other year he's done. So it kind of seems like if that's true, if that's really what happened, and to make space for Conor Benn and Ryan Garcia, I mean, you just answered your own question, Rudo. Is he the face of boxing anymore? I guess not. They're moving his fight date to cater to Ryan Garcia, who just barely became a world champ, hasn't really done anything legacy-wise in the sport. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's honestly crazy. And that rumor, like, it speaks very loudly.
Yeah, it does. And, Canelo's a guy who was going to fight in the zone, right? So Ryan Garcia fights on the zone because he signed with Golden Boy and they have exclusive TV rights with the zone. Conor Benn doesn't fight on the zone unless maybe given permission.
He fights on Zuffa.
On Zuffa, he fights with Zuffa Boxing, and they have TV rights with Paramount Plus. So, I right now I think this story is still kind of breaking out. The more details that come out, we'll see what kind of happens. But I'm actually kind of curious to see if this fight with Brian Garcia and Conor Benn is going to be on the zone. I'm kind of shocked how the fact they're seeing Canelo right now. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they saw it, if we're just on the business aspect, they see Ryan Garcia being able to pull more fans on that day than Canelo. That's really crazy to me. Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, I'm so shocked because they could have just put it as like the co-main event. Because Turkey is known for this. He's known for like stacking up these cards, right? There's big name. Every single one of them could be a main event. And I think it would, I just don't understand. It'd make total sense to put Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn, if that fight is going to happen on September 12th, just put it as the co-main event. And that's going to be huge because, Ryan Garcia, he don't speak Spanish, but he does have some Mexican heritage, right? So, I mean, the whole event was called Mexico versus the world, right? So, I don't know. I'm just shocked, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, look, outside of boxing, we also have to, Turkey is a guy, very fanatic. This guy likes to splurge on these big mega fights, and who's to say that he wouldn't be on board with that. You know, putting Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn as the co-main event, I think that would have been a superb co-main event. I think that would have really solidified, you know, the main event, co-main event, and then the rest of the card. You know, I like to say that Turkey likes to put 50-50 fights or fights that are very entertaining instead of like, you know, how some other promotional boxing companies are just like to do like the main event and then all the rest of the cards are shit. So, you know, that would have been set in stone. Great matchup. But, you know, Turkey, you know, his health wise isn't the best. So maybe he's not even there anymore to like, you know, put forth or be like, hey, you know, guys, you know, be kind of like a mediator between, you know, some of these corporate guys and some of these like, you know, the boxing people and be like, hey, you know, this makes sense. I think the people would love to see this fight or whatever, this matchup.
Yeah, that was some crazy news when that broke. You know, that Turkey, something's wrong with like something in his brain. He's got some health issues, and that like his memory is gonna like deteriorate in the coming years. So I mean, that is a question, right? Like, I love Turkey. I know some people are haters. And like for some reason they think he's like I don't know. I don't even know what they say about him, but they just hate on him. I don't know why. I personally love him. I think he's made some of the biggest fights in boxing recently. I think it was like a fresh perspective, you know, Saudi money. Now you know, so like I liked it a lot, and it's gonna be unfortunate, you know, if the his health issues get in the way of like making big fights. You know, maybe he's like. Giving the responsibility now, delegating all the responsibility to other people, right? And then they are in charge, and he's not in charge anymore. So I don't know. Listen, this is all speculation, but I don't know. Seeing this news was extremely shocking. Like, I would never think that Canelo wouldn't be fighting on Mexican Independence Day weekend.
Yeah, this is still in the early developments. We'll definitely see more information as the coming weeks go by, but for sure, one thing certain, Canelo Álvarez will not be fighting in September. Instead, his clash with WBC champion Christian Mbilli will be postponed to a later date sometime in late October. But I think that's all the information we had to cover. I just also want to mention one quick thing. We have Zuffa Boxing 8 this Sunday. Or actually today, we're recording on Sunday. But the thing is, I'm checking the updates right now. Cashflow Diaz got stopped. He just got stopped. He got upset right now.
Dang.
He was up 5-0 in the cards, and then he got caught clean, and then he got stopped.
Wow.
Pretty crazy stuff going on over in Zuffa Boxing.
Isn't it crazy that this guy was screaming for the Inoue fight? If I'm not mistaken, Cash Floyd Diaz, maybe like 4 years ago, put on his trunks, "I'm coming for you," Inoue.
Oh.
He put something like that on his trunks. Yeah, and then afterwards, for whatever fight, he had called him out.
No, yeah, he's always been a little cocky, you know, a little arrogant.
No.
That's actually crazy because he was a massive prospect.
No.
Like, wow, that's crazy to hear. And that just shows you Zuffa puts on some good fights. All right, I know people be hating because it's Dana White. I know you be hating, Rudo, okay? I know you be hating. I'm just letting you know Zuffa is where it's at. And I'm most excited about Benito.
Who?
He's a Zuffa staple.
Well, we'll see. They have the main event for this fight. It's the rematch between Rayo Valenzuela and La Granada, Edwin de los Santos. So I'm very excited about that. Of course, that's coming later tonight. So I'm anticipating some fireworks for that lightweight rematch. But that's besides the point. The point is we're ending the episode here. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also follow us on all forms of social media. We're on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. This was Pablo, and I'm with Rudo Nasa, and this was the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.